Great to have you guys here today at San Francisco. Look at the sold-out crowd here. Pretty crazy, huh? Last but not least, so I bet you all thought this had cocktails. Cocktails are in the room over there. Yeah, exactly. Get up and leave. So I was told I have 10 minutes, so we'll see if we can squeeze it in here. Raise your hand. Who is a lawyer? Is there any lawyer here? I did talk to a lawyer. You're going to have a lot of billable hours. You should, this whole space is pretty nuts, but if you're looking for billable hours, definitely stay around. Some of these panels probably are self-incriminating, so if you do defense attorney stuff, you could make some money here. So, quick disclaimer. These slides are just my own opinions. I'm using examples. I'm not endorsing. This is not financial advice. I am not a lawyer. So, as you have seen, most of the panelists have talked about something that involves a coin. Raise your hand. Who's done an ICO here? Oh, you're probably going to jail. All right, anyone think they did an ICO in which they did something illegal? No, there's no such thing as a legal ICO, right? That's an oxymoron. So this is my favorite little roadmap. First, you come up with an idea. We all have ideas. We're ideas people. That's what we are here in San Francisco. Then you maybe do a little research by Googling for a couple minutes. Then you copy-paste the stuff you see into a white paper. And then you claim to do some kind of ICO launch by spamming social media, right? And now that, unfortunately, Google and everyone else has cracked down on that, it's hard to get those new bag holders. So step 5 is the most important. That's when you first receive your subpoena. And anyone receive a subpoena yet? For those on video, everyone raised their hand. All right. 6, prosecution. There was actually a counsel from Arizona out here just a second ago. Trial and conviction, there's been a couple of people about to be brought to trial. Prison, I don't think there's prison quite yet. We'll get to this in a little bit. Taking a step back. Okay, who remembers Liberty Reserve? Anybody? No, okay. So, if you're trying to think about what cryptocurrencies were before Bitcoin, there really wasn't what we would call a cryptocurrency. There were these different projects that had elements of some of the pieces that Satoshi brought together. The first being Chaumian eCash, named after David Chaum, who actually lives in LA now. So these ideas have been around maybe 3+ decades, depending on how you define it. He put that into a commercial project called DigiCash. It lasted for about 3 years and failed for a variety of reasons, primarily because various participants were really, really greedy about having access to effectively a mint. Then you had eGold. eGold got shut down because they didn't have the proper licenses, and you had people money laundering through their system. And we're not going to spend time going through all of these. You're obviously familiar with some of the ones that lasted, like PayPal, who were down where I live in San Jose. Well, actually, I do want to highlight one thing. If you have time, look up beans and flues. Like, if you have homework tonight or you want to impress your wife or your girlfriend or significant other. I'm joking. None of you guys, obviously, you're all nerds, so you don't have significant others yet. But yeah, beans and flues were basically what celebrities were endorsing, 15 years ago. I think Whoopi Goldberg, I think she was endorsing flues. I think the guys behind Oracle were endorsing beans, if I get that right. Or maybe it's Larry Ellison, I think, personally endorsed it. So Bitcoin, you've all heard of that. The white paper came out just under 10 years ago. The original Genesis block came out just over 9 years ago. And pretty much nobody does anything with it today except for fork it a bunch and resell it as something else. This is my favorite little title, The Guns of August, that actually took place during World War I, 1914. We really had that same idea take place in 2011, so I call altcoin August. Basically, you had a bunch of probably the same people. I mean, obviously, they use different names, but it's probably the same folks within a short period of time, fork coins, rebrand them, and just tweak a couple of parameters. Largely, they did a PreMine, so they allocated some coins to themselves. That hasn't really changed in the last 7 years. Here we are, 2018. Everyone does a PreMine. Again, not endorsing any of these projects, just giving examples. And the one that actually kind of had lasting power, as it were, is Litecoin. Again, not endorsing it. Funny story, when I lived in China 6 years ago, I actually did mine some Bitcoin and Litecoin. Please do not kidnap me. I do not have coins anymore. So What happened after people got bored of forking coins? Well, some people tried to do something called color coins and these meta coin schemes. Basically, they took a discrete amount of a coin, in this case some Satoshis on Bitcoin, and they said, hey, this represents a car, this represents gold. They quickly found out that that really doesn't have any ties to the real world. You actually need legal hooks, some contracts, something that binds parties together, because there's zero control that a chain has on the off-chain world. The probably most popular project that all of you in the audience know at this stage that lasted during that era is something called Ethereum. They also did their own little ICO, summer 2014. They raised, who wants to guess? Anyone want to guess how much money they raised in 2014? It's about $17 million. So it was a lot for that time. Again, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not even saying that they did it right. In fact, they did a general solicitation, so maybe that wasn't right. But bottom line is they're around 3 years later, actually almost 4 years later, since summer's around the corner. Back to the roadmap. This is a great roadmap. Feel free to take pictures of it again. So I call it the Subpoena Coin era because that's pretty much what a lot of these folks probably are going to end up. There was over, here's some headlines for that. So just under a month ago, the New York Times, followed by several stories from the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, said, hey, we've discovered that 80+ subpoenas have gone out. This included to issuers, to promoters, to funds. Basically, anyone that solicited Americans in public probably got a subpoena. We don't know names. Only 2 or 3 have admitted to it, including, I believe, T0 got one. And I'd have to go through. I've written about it before. Happy to follow up with you offline. Arrested coin. So this is breaking. There's not been a whole lot of people arrested per se. There was one, I think, at the very end of last year or two, specifically around ICOs. Centra. Who is a Centra bag holder? Anyone want to admit? No? So Centra raised $32 million last October, I believe. And after they raised that amount of money, a guy named Nathaniel Popper, a writer at the New York Times, published an article saying, hey, the founders of this organization have a very interesting past that they didn't admit to, some kind of criminal past, and they may have lied about what they were saying in regards to what their product, I believe they claimed to have access to the Visa network, and he followed up with that, and they found out that wasn't the case. Well, you fast forward to just under a week ago, I think it was last Monday, or last Tuesday, the SEC basically shut these guys down, and then in conjunction with law enforcement, they brought in and arrested 2 of the founders. One, I think they drained the money from the bank, from the account into their own, and they had actually bought tickets to fly from the country. Let's see, any of these other ones that are interesting? Yeah, so obviously it's easy to find scammers. This space is really ripe for that, unfortunately. But I will leave you on a high note. This is me pitching something that's not a cryptocurrency. So if you're trying to do something in which you're not going to be fleeced because there is no coin, check out some of the enterprise-related efforts. A lot of people confuse them. Again, Bitcoin is trying to accomplish something different than what enterprises are trying to do. I have very good intimate knowledge of this world because this is what I spent the last few years working on as head of research over at R3. Basically, if you're looking for platforms that are built for B2B related activities, these are the guys to look up. I'm not necessarily endorsing them, but you'll have a good idea of the capital markets use cases that they're trying to tackle. And if they could achieve meeting those needs of highly regulated financial institutions, then it's possible that that technology can be reapplied for B2C and other areas. And again, I'm not saying that any of these guys will necessarily win and become trillion-dollar ventures. That's obviously what they would like. But if you're looking for something that won't end up on the front pages of the FBI's most wanted list, this is where to begin. And that's my contact info. So I believe that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much today, and feel free to ask me any questions offline.